What's up, YouTube, and welcome back to another video. So today I want to talk about something that's quite a bit of a topic for the BMW community in general, not necessarily just this car, but I want to talk about the reliability of the F8X, or more specifically the S55 motor. It kind of gets crapped on in the community as being unreliable. So is that true? Is that actually true? I don't think that it is. I've put 26,000 miles on it in the little bit of time that I've owned it. One, for being that it's so much fun to drive, and it's like, it's not my daily driver, but I do drive it a lot. Like, it's really hard sometimes whenever I'm just going to my office right up the street to not just get in the car and drive. Sorry, people like to pull out in front of me. But it really is, it's that good of a car. Like, you could put miles on this car, no problem. It's just such a good car. Reliability issues that I've had personally, only thing that I've had issues with out of this car is the OEM charge cooler actually started leaking on me, and me not really thinking too hard about it. I didn't want to spend a bunch of money on an aftermarket one, so I just went ahead and bought like a low mileage used OEM one for a few $100s and put that on there. And long behold, not long after putting that one on there, that one started leaking. So I've had that issue twice. People talk about, you know, this one having the best performance and the OEM one being the best, and maybe for performance, maybe, you know, the back pressure of it. I don't know specifically, you know, the cooling capabilities of it. I don't know specifically why, but they're right. If you put an aftermarket one on there, you actually lose a few horsepower. So I don't know why that reason is. I'm not an expert on that type of stuff. All I know is that I actually got out of that pretty cheap by just getting an unbranded charge cooler, putting some like personal touches on it, and calling it a day. It's been great. Everything's been good. So reliability wise, that charge cooler that comes on the car is prone to breaking, and that's something you should watch out for if you're in the market for one of these cars. I know if you're watching this video that you're probably looking at getting one, but maybe you're a little bit nervous. When things go wrong on this car, it's not cheap. So I understand if you're really concerned before stepping into one of these, because we all know, like, the newer gen BMW motors so far have been solid as a rock. I mean, the B58 and the S58 have been really good. These older, like S55, N55, even the first gen B58 had some issues, not really a lot, but we know that these cars, they, you know, have their issues. And the thing about it is I feel like if you own an M car, you're really particular, or at least I know that I am. I'm very particular about my car, so I try my best to always take care of this car. I do things as soon as it needs it. I do my oil changes. I really take care of the car, and part of it being is I take pride in the ownership of this car. This car is a hobby to me, so part of that hobby is taking care of the car. If you're going to get one and just beat on it and not do your oil changes when you should, maybe it's not the car for you, which personally, I don't know of a car that would be good for that type of behavior. But for me, I like to take care of this car. So another thing about reliability on these cars, let's go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room, the crank hub. If you get one of these cars, do you have to do the crank hub on it? No, you don't. I know people that are tuned 100K miles plus and haven't had any issues with the crank hub thing. I think it's a very unlucky thing that happens to some people. Some people just can't drive, and they, you know, downshift out of the car and beat the hell out of it. But either way, it's still kind of stupid that that's a thing that happens to these cars. I mean, BMW knows what this car is made for. They're the ones who made the car, so they should know that they made a mistake. And if you talk to BMW techs, they act like they've never even heard of the issue. I've argued with them before, on and on. So the crank hub, I just decided to do the crank hub because I knew it would help me sleep at night. I know people who haven't, and they think that is a myth and all that, but I've met people with low mileage cars, bone stock, that spun the hub. So I went ahead and did it. I knew that I wanted to tune the car. I knew I wanted to throw some aftermarket parts on there. Like I said, this is my hobby car. This is my toy, so why not go ahead and just be safe? I mean, if you can afford this kind of car and you can afford ownership, you can save up the money to do a crank hub. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. You do not have to do the crank hub. But if you plan on tuning it and doing more power and all that kind of stuff, I would recommend it. I would think that it would make you sleep better at night, just knowing that that's not going to happen. I mean, I can have fun, downshift my car, and not have to worry about that. I think that it's a big plus to ownership of an S55. Just doing the upgraded crank hub. I mean, once you do it, you can put 700 to these cars, no problem. Have all the fun you want. I'm at like 500 horsepower right now. I don't want to go too much higher. I'm going to be stage 2 and that's it. You know, typical stuff. Why not just do the crank hub? I mean, it's the elephant in the room with these cars. We all know it. Everybody says, have you done your crank hub? Have you done your crank hub? The B58 guys, you know, they make fun, say, oh, your crank hub's going to spin. I get it. It's a funny joke, but once you do the crank hub in this car, I'm telling you, they are super, super reliable. I think that they're just as reliable as anything else. I know people have even talked about like doing rod bearings in these cars. Every like indie shop that I've talked to, or every one of my friends who's a tech at a performance shop tells me that that's not necessary. That's something that you might would have to do on like a really high mileage car. So rod bearings, I think if you do aftermarket charge cooler, do a pinned crank hub, and then do some charge pipes, like there's not really much to worry about on these cars. One of the other things that people don't really talk about a lot until you like get into the community, you probably haven't heard of it, but I think another thing that you should do and that I'm gonna do is the Turner Motorsports skid plate. It goes on the bottom and it covers the oil cooler. It sits like, if your car is lowered like mine, this car is like pretty low, it sits like adjacent to the ground. So if you go over, if you hit something and that thing gets punctured or dented really bad, it could leak out the oil and you could like destroy your motor. So Turner Motorsports skid plate, or just one of the other brands if they make them, I would recommend that. I'm doing that next. But yeah, guys, I mean, if you're looking to buy one of these cars, I've had this car for almost a year and a half now, and I haven't really had any issues out of it. Nothing serious. This car has been great to drive. You know, I drive it hard sometimes. I have fun with this car, and it's been a great car. If you're in the market for one of these cars and you're worried about the reliability, I would say definitely get a good spec that hasn't been ran through and beat on or molested, and get a pre-purchase inspection. I mean, really, in all honesty, it shouldn't be too hard to spend an extra couple $100 to get it inspected so you know if you're buying a good car. My car was completely stock whenever I got it, so I wasn't like too worried about it being beat on. It didn't seem like an enthusiast car. It just seemed like, you know, your typical used car that someone bought and drove to work. I mean, it had its little things here and there that I had to get fixed, like a ding in the door and just a few little things. So as of right now, everything has been really good on this car. And I mean, going into an M car, my first M car, like, I was a little bit nervous. I still get nervous sometimes. I mean, it took me forever to just get used to driving this car. It being so performance driven, it's just different. Like the little noises and just little jolts and everything that you feel in this car, feel it working. It took me a little bit to get used to it. Now that I'm used to it, I'm so comfortable with this car and I love it. I can't stop driving it. It's so much fun to drive. It's very raw. Anyways, guys, that was my final word. If you want one of these cars and you're worried about reliability, I think these cars are pretty dang reliable if you go ahead and do the work that they need and just take care of the car. Like, some people get into M cars and they don't know what they're doing and they just want to because it's cool, and they don't take care of them correctly. Make sure you get a car that's been taken care of and you take care of it, and I think that you'll have a great car and you really shouldn't worry about it. But that's pretty much it. This car is pretty reliable. So I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.